The Truth, an uncomfortable book about relationships, by Neil Strauss. Introduction. Have you ever wondered why relationships are so difficult? Why the person you love can also be the person who brings you the most pain? Why we sometimes do things that we know will hurt the people we care about most? There's a story about a man who seemed to have it all figured out. He was a best-selling author, famous for writing a book called The Game, a guide to mastering the art of seduction. He could, it seemed, have any woman he wanted. And he did. But when he finally found a woman he truly loved, a woman named Ingrid, he did something that threatened to destroy everything. He cheated on her. And one day, while packing for a trip to meet his family, his world came crashing down. Ingrid was on the floor of their guest house, zipping up an overstuffed suitcase. She looked up at him, her eyes full of love and excitement. "I'm excited, babe," she said. She had no idea that just the night before, he had been with one of her friends. He had showered, checked his car for stray hairs, and cleaned every piece of evidence. The only thing he couldn't clean was his conscience. "So how was last night?" she asked, her voice innocent. He told her a lie. A simple, easy lie about a frustrating work meeting. And as he looked at her, he felt a chasm open up inside him. He was living a double life. This moment was the beginning of a journey. A painful, uncomfortable, and deeply honest journey into the heart of love, sex, and commitment. The man's name is Neil Strauss, and his story, documented in his book The Truth, is one of the most raw and revealing explorations of modern relationships ever written. This isn't just a book about infidelity. It's a quest to answer a question that haunts so many of us. Is it possible to love one person for a lifetime? And if so, how? What if the rules we've been given about love and marriage are outdated, or even unnatural? Over the next few minutes, we're going to walk with Neil on his incredible journey. We'll go inside the walls of a psychiatric hospital for sex addiction. We'll explore free love communes, modern-day harems, and swinger parties. We'll meet scientists, therapists, and gurus, each with their own answer to the puzzle of human connection. But more than that, we're going to uncover a profound secret about ourselves. We're going to learn that the biggest obstacle to a loving relationship isn't finding the right person. It's becoming the right person. This is a story about tearing everything down to find out what's real. It's about discovering that every truth you fought for, and even loved for, might be wrong. So, take a deep breath. This is going to be uncomfortable. Book summary. Our story begins not in a moment of triumph, but in a moment of utter crisis. Neil Strauss, the man who taught a generation of men how to talk to women, is on a plane, flying to a psychiatric hospital. He has no phone, no computer. They're not allowed where he's going. All he has are his thoughts, and his thoughts are a frantic map of every attractive woman on the plane. His mind is a machine, calculating approach angles, imagining conversations, and fantasizing about encounters that will never happen. Why? Because he cheated on his girlfriend, Ingrid. The one woman who, after years of games and conquests, he felt he might truly love. It happened 6 months earlier. He told Ingrid he had a late-night work meeting with the musician Marilyn Manson. It was a lie. He met up with one of her friends, and they had sex in the parking lot of a church. He returned home, showered away the evidence, and the next morning, helped Ingrid pack for a trip to Chicago for her birthday, where she was going to meet his family. The lie sat between them, a silent poison. He loved her, or at least he thought he did. But can you truly love someone you are actively deceiving? This question gnawed at him. He looked around at his married friends and saw a landscape of quiet desperation. Some were cheating, others were miserable, and even the ones who seemed happy admitted to feeling unfulfilled. The institution of marriage seemed broken. Maybe, he thought, The problem wasn't just him. Maybe the model itself was flawed. His journey to find an answer didn't begin by choice. It was forced upon him. A few months after that first lie, the truth came out in the worst way possible. While Neil was away on a business trip, Ingrid received an email from the friend he had slept with, Juliet. The email was a detailed confession. We had sex in his car, in my bed, and in my shower. The world Neil had carefully constructed shattered. Ingrid's trust was obliterated. Friends turned against him. He was facing threats of violence. In his despair, he finally listened to the advice of his friend, the legendary music producer Rick Rubin. Rick had told him months earlier, "You're an addict. You use sex like a drug to fill a hole. And that hole is your self-esteem." Rick had urged him to go to rehab, but Neil had refused. Now, with his life in ruins, he had no other choice. He found himself at a level 1 psychiatric hospital, a place for people on the verge of drinking or injecting themselves to death. His crime? He cheated on his girlfriend. He felt like an imposter. Inside, the rules were rigid and dehumanizing. His books were confiscated. His nail clippers and razor were taken away. He was put on suicide watch. He was handed a pager to wear at all times. A nurse, with dull, mechanical eyes, asked him if he was a sex addict. "If you're cheating on your relationship, if you're visiting porn sites, or if you're masturbating," she said flatly, "that's sex addiction." He was given a red name tag. Red was for sex addicts. This tag was his scarlet letter. It marked him as a predator, the worst of the worst. While other addicts harmed their own bodies, he was there because he sought the bodies of others. The first person he meets is his roommate, Adam. Adam is a handsome, all-American guy with a wife and 2 kids. He seems to have the perfect life. But he's there for the same reason every other man is there. He got caught. His wife had become distant and passionless, and he found love and excitement in an affair. He didn't want to divorce his wife. He had a family, a history. But he couldn't deny the feeling of being truly alive that the other woman gave him. In his first 12-step meeting for Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, Neil is surrounded by broken men. One man, who looks like a sad Santa Claus, confesses to a secret life of visiting prostitutes in Tijuana and contracting an STD that he has yet to tell his wife about. Another man, Charles, is a codependent depressive sex addict who relapsed after 10 years of sobriety. These are stories of shame, regret, and the terror of getting caught. When it's Neil's turn to speak, he admits, "I'm a sex and love addict." He's there, he says, to find out why he would hurt the woman he loves and to learn how to have a committed relationship. The therapy sessions are led by a woman named Joan. She is the embodiment of everything Neil has been running from his whole life, a stern, judgmental mother figure. She sees the men in her group not as patients to be healed, but as predatory animals to be tamed. Her method is to break them down, to strip them of their ego and pride, to make them feel the full weight of their shame. She tells one man, who spent over $100,000 on escorts, that he is reenacting the childhood trauma of abused women. She tells another that even looking at a woman with desire is covert sexualized violence. The core of her philosophy is that if you have true intimacy with your partner, you won't need to seek sex outside the relationship. This idea becomes the central conflict of Neil's time in rehab. He challenges Joan. Using a blackboard, he draws out a logical argument. "Let's say your wife is the best cook in the world," he tells the group. "According to what you're saying, you'll never want to eat anywhere else. But that's just not true. Sometimes you want to go to a restaurant for a change." He argues that for men, sex and intimacy are not always the same thing. You can have deep intimacy with your partner, but still desire the novelty and excitement of a different sexual experience. His rebellion earns him the admiration of the other men, but the scorn of Joan. As punishment, she orders him to present his timeline, the story of his childhood, to the group the next day. This is the moment everything changes. To understand the man, you have to understand the child. Neil believed he had a normal childhood. But as he begins to map out his life on a long sheet of butcher paper, a darker picture emerges. He describes a household ruled by his mother's paranoia and control. He was never given a key to the house. His friends were criticized. His first dates were forbidden. He was grounded for months at a time for minor infractions. His mother, unhappy in her marriage, confided in him, her eldest son. She told him secrets about his father she should have never shared with a child. She told him his father was a monster, a selfish bastard, and that he had only been able to perform sexually twice in their marriage, once to conceive Neil, and once to conceive his brother. "Whatever you do," she warned him, "never grow up to make anyone as miserable as your father makes me." He was not just her son, he was her surrogate spouse, her confidant. But there was a deeper, more disturbing secret. A skeleton in the family closet. He tells the group about the day he, as a teenager, went searching for pornography in his father's closet. Instead of magazines, he found a VHS tape. What was on that tape changed his perception of his family forever. The tape was a collection of clips: wheelchair tennis, a movie scene of a woman in a wheelchair begging, a swimming race for people with no limbs. And finally, old film clips of amputees, models in bathing suits with missing legs. His father had a fetish for amputees. And his mother, who had a deformed leg, was the prize of his collection. This was the source of her misery, her shame, and her hatred for her husband. She made Neil promise never to tell anyone. After Neil lays this devastating secret bare, the room is silent. He has broken his promise to his mother, but in doing so, he has opened the door to his own healing. Another therapist, a woman named Lorraine, listens to his story and offers an interpretation that hits him like a ton of bricks. The problem, she explains, isn't just his father's addiction. It's his bond with his mother. The secrets they kept, the way they investigated his father together. "Your mom," Lorraine says, "wants to be in a relationship with you." The room spins. Suddenly, his life makes a terrible kind of sense. Why his mother sabotaged his relationships with other women. Why she never let him have a key. Why she cut him off when he moved in with his first girlfriend. It wasn't that other women weren't good enough for him. It was that he didn't choose her. When your mom is emotionally dependent on you and has intimate discussions with you that she should be having with her spouse, Lorraine concludes, there's a name for that. It's called emotional incest. Neil is broken. Everything he thought he knew about his life, his family, and himself is a lie. His inability to commit to Ingrid, his compulsive need for new women, it's all a reaction to being suffocated by his mother's inappropriate love. He has been unconsciously replaying this drama his entire adult life, seeking freedom from an invisible cage. He is a love avoidant, terrified of intimacy because, to him, intimacy feels like being consumed. And what about Ingrid? She is the other half of this dysfunctional dance. When Neil explains his childhood to her during a visit to rehab, she reveals her own story. Her father was a charismatic man who lived a double life, with multiple families and girlfriends. One night, Ingrid, as a little girl, witnessed her father trying to murder her mother. She and her brother burst into the room and saved her. Her father, defeated, simply said, "I'm waiting for my death to arrive." That was the last time she ever saw him. Ingrid was abandoned by her father. She is a love addict, drawn to unavailable men, hoping to finally win the love she never got as a child. Their dysfunction meshed perfectly. His wounded inner child recognized hers. They were two puzzle pieces from different boxes that happened to fit together, destined to repeat the patterns of their parents. With this new understanding, Neil leaves rehab against medical advice. He has been given a diagnosis, but not a cure. The journey is far from over. He tries to apply what he's learned to his relationship with Ingrid. He tries to be honest, to be present, to build true intimacy. But the old patterns are strong. He finds himself fantasizing about other women, even during sex with Ingrid. He watches porn. He sends a flirtatious text to an old flame. The guilt and shame are overwhelming. His attempts to be a good partner feel like a prison. The relationship, once a source of joy, becomes a source of constant tension and anxiety. He feels smothered. Ingrid, sensing his distance, becomes insecure and suspicious, which only makes him pull away more. He has a choice to make. He can continue to fight his nature, to force himself into the box of monogamy that feels like a coffin. Or he can find another way. He chooses freedom. In a heartbreaking conversation in their spaceship room, surrounded by projections of stars and galaxies, he tells Ingrid the truth. "I don't think it will ever feel right for me not to be with anyone else. For the rest of my life." Ingrid, with a strength that devastates him, understands. "I feel like I caught a beautiful bird in the wild and put it in a cage, just for me to look at," she says, tears streaming down her face. "And I need to open the cage and let it go, because it belongs in the wild." But then she adds the 6 words that will haunt him forever: "But birds die in the wild." And so, Neil is free. He is finally single, with no rules, no expectations, no one to answer to. His quest for an alternative to monogamy begins. His first stop is the world of polyamory, the practice of having multiple loving relationships with the consent of everyone involved. He meets a polygoddess named Shama Helena, a witchy woman in her 50s who holds counseling sessions on the bed in her converted garage. She teaches him the core concepts: compersion, the feeling of joy one gets from seeing a partner happy with another lover, and the importance of honesty and communication. She warns him that the path to polyamory is one of uncomfortability. He will have to confront his jealousy head-on. He attends the World Polyamory Association conference at a nudist resort. He expects to find enlightened, evolved beings. Instead, he finds a scene of aging hippies, New Age spiritualism, and a bizarre sexual ritual called a puja, where participants are instructed to touch the source of your sacred energy, their genitals, and gaze lovingly at each other's lingams and yonis. He gets kicked out of the orgy for eating popcorn in the temple. The polyamory scene seems to be populated by people who believe in aliens and call themselves goddesses. It's not for him. His next exploration is the world of swinging, or the lifestyle. He meets a lawyer named Nicole at a party. She's beautiful, intelligent, and in an open relationship with her boyfriend, James. But there are rules. She can only have sex with other men if James is present. Their relationship, it turns out, is just as full of drama, jealousy, and broken rules as any monogamous one. They invite him to a swinger party in Las Vegas called Bliss. It's a world of beautiful, confident people who have found a way to keep the spark alive in their long-term relationships by sharing sexual adventures. But the night ends in disaster. After being given a cocktail of GHB and liquid Viagra, Neil passes out in the middle of a foursome. He wakes up to find he was snoring while a beautiful woman was performing oral sex on him. He is the orgy ruiner. Feeling like a failure in both monogamy and non-monogamy, he decides to try creating his own reality. He tries to start a harem, inviting 3 women: Belle from Australia, Veronica from the Czech Republic, and Anne from France, to live with him in San Francisco for a 2-week experiment. The result is a catastrophe. What he thought would be a den of free-spirited love becomes a pressure cooker of jealousy, insecurity, and competition. The women vie for the front seat of his car. They argue over who gets to sleep with him. One of them, Anne, falls deeply in love with him and becomes possessive, despite having agreed to the non-monogamous arrangement. Neil finds himself sleeping alone on the couch, acting as a referee between three miserable women. Instead of freedom, he has created a prison with three wardens. The experiment implodes. He explores other options. He considers a platonic co-parenting arrangement. He tries a triad with two bisexual women. He even starts a full-blown love commune in a treehouse, which ends when a housemate's jealous boyfriend tries to kill him with an axe. Every path he takes leads to drama and trauma. He is exhausted, confused, and more alone than ever. He has explored every alternative, and none of them has brought him the happiness he seeks. And then, he gets the news that shatters his world completely. His friend Melanie shows him a photo online. It's Ingrid. She has a new boyfriend, a man who looks like a cross between James Dean and Thor. The safety net is gone. The fantasy that he could one day return to her is destroyed. He has hit rock bottom. In his despair, he turns again to Rick Rubin and Lorraine, the wise therapist from rehab. They sit with him at a restaurant, and Rick delivers the harshest truth of all. It's not relationships that are broken, he says, his eyes blazing. It's you. Lorraine suggests the only path he hasn't tried: anhedonia. The dark place of not feeling. A complete detox from intensity, from sex, from relationships, from women. He must empty himself out completely. He agrees. He changes his phone number. He changes his email address. He blocks all social media. He cuts off contact with every woman he has ever sexualized. He is truly alone, adrift in a sea of nothingness. The days are a gray fog. He feels numb, dead inside. But in this emptiness, something begins to grow. He starts to take care of himself. He surfs, he eats well, he meditates. He begins the painful work of reparenting himself, of giving his inner child the love, acceptance, and security he never received. He looks at an old school photo of himself, an awkward 8-year-old with crooked teeth and oversized glasses, and feels a surge of love and sadness. He vows to protect that child. Slowly, the fog begins to lift. The world comes back into color. He starts to feel a sense of peace he has never known. He realizes that all his life, he has been trying to fill a hole inside himself with external things, with women, with sex, with adventure, with intensity. But the only thing that can fill that hole is himself. He compiles a list of all the lessons he's learned. He calls it an incomplete guide to love for the incomplete man. He understands now why he cheated. It wasn't just one thing. It was a fear of being engulfed. It was unfulfilled sexual desires he was afraid to communicate. It was a denial of personal responsibility. It was a deep-seated feeling of worthlessness. And it was a faulty belief that humans are just animals, driven by instinct. One day, while packing for his long-delayed trip to Machu Picchu, he finds the wedding invitation that had arrived months ago. The one he thought was for Ingrid's wedding. He opens it again and realizes his mistake. It's not Ingrid's wedding. It's her brother's. He has one last chance. As he hikes the Inca Trail, surrounded by the breathtaking beauty of the Andes, his mind is clear. He thinks about a reporter who was kidnapped by rebels and, with a gun to his head, thought not of his wife, but of his high school sweetheart. When he was rescued, he left his wife and married her. He was given a second chance, and he knew what he had to do. Neil realizes that in his own moment of clarity, walking through the valley of anhedonia, he thought only of Ingrid. All the other women, all the adventures, they were just distractions. Love is rare. He sends a text to Ingrid, the secret code word they had agreed upon if he ever needed her in an emergency. Freedom. Days pass with no reply. He begins to despair. Maybe he's too late. Maybe she's moved on. Maybe he doesn't deserve a second chance. But Ingrid has been on her own journey. She, too, has been learning to love herself, to be a whole person on her own. She sent him the invitation. She was hoping he would come. At the wedding, he sees her. She is more beautiful than he remembers. He has brought her a box of gifts, symbols of his transformation. A key to the private beach where he surfs, a symbol of trust. A locket with photos of their inner children. A photo of a thriving plant she had left him, a plant called the Survivor. They talk. They cry. They begin to heal. The journey is not over. It is just beginning. But for the first time, they are on the same path, walking together. A few months later, they perform a ritual. They bury a small coffin in the backyard. Inside is a tiny plastic elephant, the elephant in the room, their past of deceit and pain. They bury keys labeled secrets and memories. They are letting go of the past and choosing the present. The opposite of fear is not joy. It is acceptance. And they have chosen to accept each other, as they are, with all their wounds and all their beauty. Their commitment is not to monogamy or non-monogamy. Their commitment is to each other, to honesty, and to nurturing their relationship, whatever form it may take. In the end, Neil Strauss discovers the most uncomfortable truth of all. Love is not about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person. And true freedom is not the ability to have anyone you want. It's the ability to choose, with your whole heart, to be with the one you love. Commentary. What an incredible, raw, and vulnerable journey. When you peel back all the layers of Neil Strauss's story, the sex addiction, the orgies, the harems, what you find at the core is a universal human struggle. It's the battle between our desire for security and our desire for freedom. Between the comfort of a committed partnership and the thrill of the unknown. For a young person, especially someone who's just starting to navigate the complex world of relationships, this book is like a secret map. It shows you all the dead ends, all the hidden traps, and all the dangerous territories that people wander into when they're driven by unhealed wounds. The most powerful lesson, I think, is the idea of the wounded inner child. It's such a simple concept, but it explains so much about why we do the things we do in relationships. Neil's fear of being smothered came from his relationship with his mother. Ingrid's fear of being abandoned came from her relationship with her father. They were two adults playing out a script that was written for them in childhood. And until they became aware of that script, they were doomed to repeat it. Think about that for a second. How much of what you look for in a partner, or how you behave in a relationship, is a reaction to your own past? Are you seeking someone to fix you, to complete you, or to save you from your own loneliness? The book forces us to ask these tough questions. It shows us that a healthy relationship isn't about two halves making a whole. It's about two whole people choosing to share their lives. Another profound idea is the distinction Neil ultimately makes between pleasure and happiness. He spent years chasing pleasure, the short-term high of a new conquest, a new adventure, a new experience. He thought that was freedom. But it was a cage of its own, an endless cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. True happiness, he discovered, came from something quieter, something deeper. It came from self-acceptance, from intimacy, and from commitment. Not a commitment forced by rules, but a commitment born of choice. So, what can you take away from this today? First, get to know your own story. What are the patterns in your family? What messages did you receive about love, sex, and relationships? Understanding your past is the first step to not being controlled by it. Second, practice honesty. especially when it's uncomfortable. Neil's journey was fueled by secrets and lies. His healing began when he chose truth. A relationship built on truth, even when that truth is difficult, is 100 times stronger than one built on convenient lies. And finally, remember that love is a skill. It's not something that just happens to you. It's something you build, you nurture, you practice. It requires patience, compassion, and a willingness to look at your own flaws. That was a summary of The Truth by Neil Strauss. We've journeyed through the main ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a photograph of the Grand Canyon. It can show you the shape and the colors, but it can't convey the feeling of standing on the edge, the sheer scale and majesty of it all. The real power of this book is in the details, in the raw honesty of Neil's voice, and in the quiet moments of reflection it inspires. If any part of this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt confused or lost in the world of relationships, I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. It's more than a book, it's an experience that might just change the way you see love, and yourself, forever. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please do me a small favor and hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know that these journeys are worth taking, and it ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.